The emergency docking bay on Station Varela 7 lit up as the battered freighter lurched into berth. Sparks showered the deck as hydraulic clamps snapped into place. The doors hissed open, and two station medics rushed forward right before skidding to a stop. Something roared from inside. A sound that didn't belong in deep space. Station security flinched. One of the medics, a short gray-skinned alien with a cluster of eyes on its forehead, stumbled back and grabbed its calm containment requested immediate. There's a Class 5 Predator in the freighter's cargo hold. Inside the ship, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a torn jacket dragged himself out of the pilot's seat. His left arm hung limply. Blood soaked through the bandage he'd wrapped himself in hours ago. He limped toward the hatch, his face tight with pain. "Don't shoot," he barked, raising his good hand. "It's not what you think." From behind him came another growl, then a sharp bark. A creature roughly wolf-sized but with scales instead of fur and a tail that flailed like a whip bounded past him and landed heavily on the deck. It panted, tongue lolling, tail wagging with such force it knocked a toolbox across the floor. The medic screamed. One dropped a scanner and bolted. "Stand down," the man shouted. "She's not dangerous, she's just excited." The creature turned toward the nearest medic, eyes gleaming, and let out a joyful yap. The medic fainted. Station Commander Relics arrived seconds later, flanked by two armed guards. His skin was a dull bronze, his uniform immaculate. "What in the stars is that thing?" Relics demanded. "Why wasn't it declared on your cargo manifest?" The man exhaled slowly. "Because she wasn't cargo. She's my dog." "Kind of." Relix's eyes narrowed. "That is not a dog. Her name's Juno. She's 3 years old. Picked her up on Dravik 4. Local pack animal. Got injured in the freighter crash, and now she's limping. I need a vet. A real one. Not a biologist with a tranq gun. You brought a Class 5 Predator onto my station and are requesting veterinary care." The man winced and leaned against the wall. "Yeah, and maybe a doctor for me, too. Cracked ribs, probably. Right arm's useless, but she goes first." Relix turned to the trembling medics. "Get the station xeno-veterinarian. Now." It took 20 minutes, during which time the man named registered as Kalen Trayer, a licensed independent cargo hauler, refused to let anyone muzzle the beast, despite multiple requests. Juno stayed by his side, occasionally licking his face and growling if anyone got too close. Eventually, a tall insectoid creature in a white coat arrived, flanked by two assistants. Its eyes, a flat, dull green, scanned the animal, then turned toward Kalen. "You said this is a domesticated animal?" "Yeah, and it obeys commands. Most of the time." The vet stepped forward, its antennae twitching once. Juno growled. It stopped. "I am qualified to treat over 800 species. That," it gestured stiffly toward Juno, "is not one of them. It exhibits signs of aggression, unpredictable behavior, and has no verified taxonomy in our database. I will not risk my staff." "So you're refusing to help?" The vet turned, already walking away. "Correct." Kalen blinked hard, then slowly lowered himself onto a bench, cradling his ribs. Juno whimpered beside him. Relix crossed his arms. "You'll have to restrain it. We can sedate her until a qualified specialist is brought in. She'll panic if you take her away. She's injured, scared, and I'm all she's got. You're also bleeding internally, by the look of you." "I'll be fine." Relix sighed. "You're not the first human to say that before collapsing in my hallway. What exactly are you proposing?" Kalen looked up. "Let me treat her." "I'm a vet." "You mean an animal medic?" "Yes. I trained on Earth. Worked with everything from hamsters to horses. I've seen worse injuries than hers and worse behavior too. She's just scared. She's not a beast." Relix looked at him for a long moment, then at the panting, tail-wagging creature sitting patiently beside him. "Very well, but under surveillance. One incident, and we sedate them both." 3 hours later, Kalen was in an isolation medical bay, Juno lying beside him on a makeshift table. His ribs had been wrapped by a human nurse brought in from a nearby embassy clinic, and his arm was in a sling after scans revealed a dislocated shoulder and a hairline fracture in the forearm. He was pale, sweating, and visibly struggling to stay upright. "Come on, girl," he murmured, gently stroking her scaled snout. "Let's see what we're working with." He prodded around her hind leg, watching her eyes. She whined but didn't snap. "Good girl. I know it hurts." He applied antiseptic, then started stitching a torn muscle. Juno whimpered, but stayed still. Outside the glass, the alien vet was watching with his arms crossed, occasionally muttering into his recorder. The station nurse stepped inside. You shouldn't be up. I'm almost done. You need rest. You've lost a lot of blood. Kalen bit back a grunt as he tied the final stitch. She was limping for 10 hours straight. Didn't make a sound. If she can handle that, I can handle this. The nurse looked at the alien creature on the table. Its tail thumped the table once, then twice. She seems calm. Yeah, she trusts me. That's all she needed. By morning, the station was buzzing with rumors. Word spread fast. A human vet, refusing sedation, treating what station logs had labeled a hostile predator with nothing but gauze, thread, and a calm voice. Commander Relax personally debriefed Kalen in the infirmary. You do realize you violated at least 3 quarantine protocols. I didn't have a choice. She wouldn't have survived 12 hours in a cargo crate waiting for some off-world zoologist to arrive. And yet, Relax glanced at his data pad. The creature's blood work shows no pathogens, no threat indicators. Its aggression markers are lower than our trained security dogs. Kalen raised an eyebrow. Yeah, because she's a dog. She's not. Not Earth standard, no. But behaviorally, she's the same. Loyal, intelligent, emotionally bonded. She even knows 5 basic commands. Relax considered that. The vet has filed a formal complaint against you. Let him. And yet, he also requested access to your treatment logs for study. He called your work amateur, but surprisingly effective. Kalen chuckled softly, then winced. I'll take the compliment. Relax stood. Your ship is grounded for repairs. You'll remain under observation until your injuries are fully healed. 2 weeks minimum. Understood. And the creature? She stays with me. Relax nodded. Fine, but keep her leashed. Juno barked happily from the corner, chewing on a sterile towel. Kalen looked over. That's gonna be a problem. Later that week, Kalen limped into the station's med bay for a follow-up. His shoulder was healing, but slowly. Lifting anything heavier than a cup of water made him dizzy. The nurse Marla Pinwick, a sharp-eyed woman with a no-nonsense air, checked his vitals. You're lucky you didn't tear something worse. I've been told. The ribs are healing. But if you don't stop lifting that overgrown salamander, I'll have your ship impounded and your license suspended. She gets nervous if she doesn't sleep near me. Marla raised an eyebrow. So crate train her. She chewed through the crate. Marla sighed. You're impossible. He grinned. So I've been told. Juno was recovering faster than Kalen. Her leg had healed enough for short walks, and she'd become a minor celebrity on the station. Children begged to pet her. Adults kept a wary distance. The alien vet still refused to enter the same room as her. One afternoon, while Kalen was resting near the observation deck, a station siren blared. A cargo drone had lost control near the docking ring. Its power cell was overheating. If it ruptured, it could take out half the ring. Security scrambled. But the drone was wedged between 2 bulkheads, inaccessible by mech. Kalen was watching from a bench, Juno at his feet. He saw the smoke before anyone else did. A child screamed. Then a second. The corridor was filling with gas. Kalen groaned, stood, and hissed as his ribs protested. Stay, he told Juno. Then he ran. He reached the drone as steam hissed from its vents. A panel was open. The diagnostics were blinking red. He dropped to his knees, manually disengaged the main latch, and pulled the power core. It was hot. Too hot. He turned, stumbled toward the airlock, and hurled it through the emergency ejection chute just as it flared white and vanished into space. By the time security arrived, he was unconscious. Juno was at his side, licking his face. He woke up 2 days later with an 4 in his arm and his ribs wrapped again. Marla was standing over him. You're an idiot, she said. Saved the kid. Didn't I? Yes. And cost herself another 2 weeks of recovery. Kalen winced. Worth it. Juno barked softly from the foot of the bed. Commander Relax visited that evening. You're reckless, he said. Just doing what I had to. You're also the reason we didn't lose half the station. Kalen nodded. Any chance of waiving the docking fees? Relax ignored that. The vet has asked to observe further interactions with your dog. He's curious now. Kalen smiled faintly. Told you. Feisty puppy. Relax turned to leave. Feisty. Dangerous. Loyal. Sounds like someone else I know. Kalen leaned back, eyes closing. Yeah, I guess we're both just strays. The lights in the recovery bay dimmed to mimic evening. Kalen lay propped on one side, the tension in his jaw betraying every shallow breath. Beside him, Juno stirred, claws tapping lightly against the floor before she readjusted herself against the base of the bed. Her tail thumped once, then went still. "You're due for a follow-up thoracic scan," said Marla, flipping through her tablet with a sigh. "But I can already tell you haven't been breathing deep like I told you." Kalen blinked slowly. "It hurts. That's the point. You breathe shallow, you risk fluid buildup. You want a collapsed lung on top of everything else." He didn't answer. She set the tablet down with more force than necessary. "You're not impressing anyone with the martyr act." "I'm not trying to impress anyone," he said, voice hoarse. "I'm trying to stay vertical long enough to get off this station before more things explode." Marla raised an eyebrow. "You think you're getting cleared for departure soon? Once I can walk 10 meters without seeing stars. That'll be the day," she muttered. "You've got hairline fractures in 3 ribs and a partial tear in your rotator cuff. You'll be lucky if you can lift a toothbrush in a week." He shifted and hissed through his teeth. "I'll take the toothbrush over the power core." Juno lifted her head at the sound and gave him a low chuff, as if mildly scolding him for trying to joke. "She thinks you're being dramatic," Marla said. She's not wrong. The door slid open. A tall figure stepped in, long limbs stiff like a stilt walker in slow motion. Its skin was translucent mauve, and its eyes were lidless and too round for comfort. It wore a faded orange coat 2 sizes too big, and a strap of tools across its chest clinked faintly as it moved. "You're the one who stitched the Lavari lizard with dental floss and gauze?" it asked in a tone that might have been awe or disdain. Kalen blinked. "I used surgical thread." The alien gestured vaguely at Juno. "That thing. It's not from any mapped ecosystem. No record. Not even close. But it responds to verbal cues, shows restraint, and just this morning, someone caught it helping a maintenance drone move a dropped panel." "Helping how?" She pushed it into place with her head, then sat on it until someone noticed. Kalen grinned, then winced. "Sounds like her." The alien leaned in slightly. "I'm Dravik. I specialize in comparative neurology and behavioral patterning. I've studied over 600 non-sapient quadrupeds. Most of them don't voluntarily assist machinery. She's not most things. I'd like to observe her closely, in a controlled environment." "No." Dravik's brow ridge shifted. "Why?" "Because she doesn't need someone poking at her with probes. She needs rest, movement, and peanut butter if you've got any." "Peanut butter?" "Protein paste. Tastes better." Dravik turned toward Marla. "Is the human always like this?" "He's worse when he's bored." Kalen adjusted his position again. "You want to study her, that's fine. But it's on my terms. No sedation. No restraints. You try anything she doesn't like, and I pull the plug." Dravik tapped one finger against his chin. "You think she understands consent?" "I think she understands tone. And I think she knows when someone's trying to help versus dissect her. You're protective. She saved my life once. I'm just returning the favor." Dravik nodded slowly. "Very well. I'll observe. No probes. No sedatives." Later that evening, Juno was led into an empty observation room with a low bench, a few scattered objects, and a floor made of soft, pressure-sensitive tiles. She sniffed everything twice, then circled the bench before hopping onto it with a grunt. Kalen watched through the glass, arms crossed over his chest. Marla stood beside him, arms tighter. "She's limping again," Marla said. "I noticed. She slipped earlier on a service ramp. Probably tweaked the joint. You're not going in there." "I wasn't planning to." Inside, Dravik slowly approached Juno with a padded cube. It made a soft warbling sound when pressed. He set it on the ground and stepped back. Juno stared at it, then at Dravik. She gently tapped it with her snout. The cube chirped. Dravik made a note. Then she pressed it again. Another chirp, slightly higher. Dravik raised both arms slowly. "She's mapping the tone response." Kalen leaned closer to the glass. "She's testing the pitch sequence." "That's new." Juno tried a third press. This time the cube emitted a flat buzz. She recoiled, ears twitching. Dravik chuckled. "Negative reinforcement. She's logging the pattern." "She gets bored easy," Kalen said. "If it doesn't change, she'll ignore it." As if on cue, Juno turned away and began nosing at the floor instead. Dravik stepped forward with a new object, a flat disc with alternating lights. He rolled it across the room. Juno watched it travel, then chased it. "That's not a toy," Kalen muttered. "It is now." She caught the disc and held it down with one paw, then stared directly at the observation window. You said she understands tone, Dravik said. Does she understand context? Kalen pressed the calm Juno, bring it here. She hesitated, then patted over and dropped the disc at Dravik's feet. That answers that, Marla said. She's not a pet, Dravik muttered. She's something else. A day later, Kalen was back in the med bay, seated upright with his arm in a brace. He didn't argue about it this time. His breathing was less labored, but he still grimaced with every cough. You're scheduled for another scan tomorrow, Marla said while adjusting the sling. If the fluid buildup hasn't worsened, you might be able to start limited movement exercises. Define limited. Nothing that makes you sweat, or wince, or breathe harder than a whisper. Sounds thrilling. You're lucky. Most station rescues don't end with the patient still breathing. He looked up. That's supposed to be reassuring? She rolled her eyes and checked his vitals. Just don't try to play hero again. I was trying to stop a drone from turning into a fireball. And next time, let someone with intact ribs do it. At that moment, the door opened and Relax entered, tapping something on his tablet. I've just reviewed the footage from the observation room, he said without greeting. Your creature disassembled the harmonic cube. She got bored. She also used the cube to wedge the door open when the assistant tried to vacuum the floor. Marla blinked. She understands mechanical leverage? Apparently. Kalen nodded once. Yeah, she figured out doors 2 months ago. I had to start locking my medkit. Relax didn't bother reacting. Dravik wants to travel with you when you leave the station. He wants to study her behavior in long-term, non-clinical settings. Not happening. He's willing to fund your repairs and clear your debt to the docking guild. Kalen hesitated. Still not happening. Relax tilted his head. Why? I'm not turning her into some lab rat with a data collar. She's not a specimen. She's family. Marla raised a hand. We're not doing this argument here. He's still recovering. Relax turned to go. Just know the offer stands. The door slid shut behind him. Kalen looked down at his hand, fingers twitching slightly. You ever think maybe we're the strange ones? Marla started packing away her tools. All the time. Especially when I'm suturing a space lizard with better manners than half the people I treat. Kalen chuckled, then winced again. You laugh one more time, and I'm taping your ribs myself, she warned. He nodded soberly. Noted. That night, Kalen couldn't sleep. The pain wasn't as sharp, but it never left. Juno rested beside his bed, eyes half-lidded but alert. She raised her head when he shifted. You doing okay? He whispered. She yawned, stretched a paw, and set it gently on his shin. He smiled faintly. Yeah, me too. The station's hydroponic sector was the quietest place Kalen could find that didn't smell like disinfectant or burnt circuitry. He leaned against a crate of nutrient fluid packs, left arm still strapped to his chest, and watched Juno nose through a patch of moss near the irrigation vents. Her gait was steady again, though she occasionally paused to stretch the leg she'd injured. You're not supposed to be in here, said a dry voice behind him. Kalen didn't turn. Neither is she, technically. The fungal caretaker, a tall, spindly being with a body like bundled reeds and a faint glow beneath its bark-like skin, stepped into view. It wore a utility belt filled with droppers, clippers, and a tool that resembled a tuning fork. I've just finished decontaminating this quadrant. If she drools on the root beds again, it'll set back the mold cycle by a week. She's not drooling. She's sniffing. She likes humid spots. She licked the mycelium tray yesterday. Kalen shifted his weight, suppressing a wince. Yeah, well, I've licked worse. The caretaker made a faint creaking sound that might have been disgust or confusion. The station's committee hasn't approved her for unrestricted access. They haven't approved me either, Kalen muttered. But here I am. Juno looked up from the moss, her mouth slightly open in a pant that revealed rows of smooth, peg-like teeth. The caretaker flinched. She's not going to bite your mushrooms, Kalen said. She bit through a pressure sensor. That wasn't a bite. That was an accident involving a dropped snack cube and a very stubborn lock. The caretaker tilted its head, then tapped a button on its wrist console. Then keep her near the vent lines. And off the blue trays. If she eats anything bioluminescent again, I'm not cleaning up the waste. Kalen gave a 2-fingered salute, and the caretaker vanished between the rows of cultivation tanks. Juno padded over and sat beside him, thumping her tail once against the metal floor. You know, you're making me look bad, he said. I tell them you're brilliant. and then you go and eat glowing moss." She gave a low, throaty chirp and rested her head on his knee. It had been 6 days since the drone incident. His ribs were knitting slowly, though he still needed help dressing and couldn't bend enough to tie his boots. Marla had him on a strict recovery protocol, which he followed with all the enthusiasm of a cat in a bath. By late afternoon, he and Juno were back in the observation wing. Dravik was waiting, surrounded by a semicircle of station scientists and a few off-duty crew who'd heard there would be a live demonstration. Someone had even set out folding chairs. Kalen rubbed his temples. "This is getting weird." "You agreed to a second session," Dravik reminded him. "I didn't agree to a lecture hall. Consider it outreach." "To who? Amateur cryptozoologists?" "The engineering staff. They want to know how she opens hatches." Juno trotted into the center of the room and sat, tongue-lolling, eyes scanning the crowd. Dravik cleared his throat. "We'll begin with object differentiation. She has shown a preference for textured items and appears to associate certain materials with specific tasks." Kalen crossed his arms. "Like she knows the difference between a wrench and a chew toy." Dravik placed 2 items on the floor, a smooth sphere and a jagged length of polymer tubing. "Retrieve the one you used yesterday," he said. Juno sniffed both, then nudged the sphere aside and picked up the tube, dropping it neatly at his feet. He turned to the audience. "Note the selection. No hesitation." "She remembered the texture," said a blue-skinned crew member near the back. "Also the weight distribution," muttered someone else. Dravik lifted the tube. "Now watch." He tossed it toward the far end of the room. Juno bounded after it, skidded slightly on the smooth floor, then snatched it mid-bounce and trotted back. A few people clapped. "She's not a performing animal," Kalen said sharply. Dravik turned. "No, but she responds to engagement. That's significant. She's not a lab rat, either. I'm treating her with respect." "With a crowd and a test table?" Dravik's posture stiffened. "She demonstrates learning behavior faster than any non-sapien I've cataloged. That makes her important." Kalen stepped forward, ignoring the dull flare of pain from his ribs. "She's important because she's mine, not because she passes your puzzles." A silence spread across the room. Juno dropped the tube and sat, head tilted. Dravik folded his hands behind his back. "You're protective. I understand. But you're also limiting her potential. She's not an experiment." "No. She's evidence." Kalen's jaw tightened. "Of what?" "That your species doesn't just domesticate. You reinvent." Later that night, Kalen couldn't sleep again. His shoulder ached. His ribs throbbed with every breath. Juno lay curled on the floor, her breathing steady. He sat up, swung his legs over the edge of the bed, and reached for the tablet Marla had left near the end table. He tapped through the diagnostic reports from the last week. Bone healing estimates, fluid retention rates, muscle strain projections. There was a message from Dravik. He hovered over it, then deleted it without opening. At mid-shift, he limped into the communal mess. Only a few beings were there, mostly night crew and insomniacs. A short, feather-covered technician nodded at him and returned to its meal of gelatin cubes. He poured himself tea. The motion sent a ripple of pain down his side. Juno walked in a moment later, tail low, eyes bright. "You're not supposed to follow me in here," he said. She sat. "I'm not sharing my tea." She looked at him. He sighed and poured half into a bowl. They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. "You know they want to keep you here. Study you. Scan every part of you until you're just another file in a drawer." She lapped at the tea. "I keep telling them you're not a project. You're you. That should be enough." He stared into the cup. "I had a dog once," he murmured. "Real one. Earth standard. Golden retriever. Dumb as a rock. But she knew when I was hurting. Always did." Juno nudged his foot with her snout. He smiled faintly. "You're smarter than she was. Don't tell her I said that." The next morning, Marla handed him his final scan results. "No fluid buildup. Bone calcification is progressing. You're cleared for light duty." He looked up. "Meaning? You can walk more than 10 steps without me yelling at you. But if you lift anything heavier than your boots, I swear I will glue you to the floor." "Understood." She folded her arms. "You're planning to leave, aren't you? Soon. You're not taking anyone with you." "No, good." He raised an eyebrow. "You're dumb, but not that dumb." Dravik was waiting by the docking ring as Kalen limped toward the freighter. Juno was already bounding in circles around his ankles, clearly thrilled to see the airlock again. "I assume you're departing," Dravik said. Repairs are finished. I've got a route lined up to Cinderel's belt. You could stay. We could continue the study. I think we've all studied enough. Dravik nodded once. Then I request one thing. Kalen paused. Updates, Dravik said. Just logs. Behavior patterns. Interactions. I want to understand. Not control. Kalen considered that. Fine. But if you try to sell her genome to a weapons lab, I'll come back and feed your data core to her. I don't work with weapons labs. Then we're square. He boarded the freighter, sealed the hatch, and slid into the pilot's seat. Juno curled up on the co-pilot's chair, tail tucked, eyes half closed. As the ship lifted from the dock, Kalen glanced at the console, then at her. Still think you're just a puppy, he said. She yawned. He set the course. The freighter hummed. Behind them, station Varela 7 shrank into the void. And for the first time in a long stretch of starless weeks, Kalen didn't feel like a stray. He felt like someone heading home.